about the the key ingredients, the key issues for fostering a culture of innovation in at any organization, regardless of its size.
Yes, that's a, a powerful question, Juan. Thanks for asking. And I got this question a lot. As I saw in the beginning of my work at Google, a need that there is, a specific way to innovate. And for me, finding that need or finding that way and then sharing it with others and help people to, apply those principles and train themselves in that way, was something that I, took on as a job. And so as Google's first chief innovation evangelist, really I had the honor, right, really to help grow one of the most creative cultures in the world, which is not an easy task, but it's a wonderful one. So when I first joined the company, I really was looking to work with as many teams and individuals as possible to understand how innovation actually happens in this organization that was famous for innovation, back in the days also when I was starting. And so, I traveled to about 27 offices in my first 18 months and trying to really work with as many people possible to find what's the Google way to innovate. And, I looked at every corner of the organization, worked with as many teams as possible. And what I discovered was that there is no Google way to innovate, right? So the Googlers I met who were driving innovation did not have a particular process they followed or work in a specific type of environment or had, enough resources or whatever that was. But what they did have in common was a very distinctive future-focused outlook. So I believe that perspective I observed in so many of these innovative Googlers is the secret to igniting the potential the future represents. And that's what I call a future-ready mind state. So again, it's not about having a specific process. It's not about having, a methodology or a specific environment you're in or, having resources or money that leads to innovation. It really depends on how you think about the future, what I call a future-ready mind state. And these are all, deeply human qualities that I found with these individuals. And so the good news is that we all have these qualities I can share later on with you as well in ourselves, these deeply human qualities. And so it's just a matter of tapping into these, unleashing them, even training them so that innovation can actually happen in your organization too.
Tatiana?
I'm sorry. It's curious. You talk a lot about like technology is not like innovation. They're not synonyms. Yet you worked in largest tech companies. Why is that?
Yes. Again, being future ready and innovation is really about your mind state. While technology is a tool that can enable and accelerate change, it's really our way of thinking and our way of being that determines how effectively we can leverage these tools, right? Imagine if you, explore a new technology, right? Let's say, related to AI or something like that. If you are not in the right state of mind, if you're not open, if you're not curious, if you're not experimenting with these technology, right, it doesn't lead anywhere. So it really depends on how we are cultivating qualities like optimism, like openness, curiosity, experimentation, and empathy. These are my 5 key dimensions, and how we cultivate these because they really empower us to navigate uncertainty and embrace change, and also create these meaningful innovations that we, want to see happening. So technology, again, is part of the puzzle, but our human qualities are the foundation.
It's like almost anybody talks about empathy, like it's really like disruptive that you're saying that. And why is one of the dimensions you talk about, like why did you decide to approach it?
Yes, empathy for me is one of those dimensions which is key, right? Understanding each other, right, and have that deep sense of understanding, like what people need, where they're coming from, what's something they're passionate about, and so forth, is critical to build products and services that are then relevant for these people. But empathy, as I see it, is not just about understanding other people. It's also about understanding yourself and having empathy for your own needs and trying to understand them deeply. There is an interesting project which I just want to highlight very briefly, that's conducted by some of my colleagues at Stanford. They call it the Future Self Research Project. And what they've done is they really try to understand how empathy for your future self is critical, because if you understand your needs in the future, it allows you to make different choices and show different behaviors today. So what they've done is they asked 20-year-old students if they could imagine themselves in 10 years from today, so when they're 30. And the students were like, yeah, we can, totally see ourselves, we can picture like how we live and what we're working on and so forth in 10 years from today. And then they asked the students, picture yourself in like 20 years from today, or even 30 years from today. And as you can imagine, the picture got fuzzy or even blurry, so they couldn't really see themselves in the future. And they tried to do something very interesting. So they put a VR headset on their on the students' heads, where they projected older images of themselves. So they saw themselves in the future, right? How they would look like. And what it did was basically, after several minutes taking in this image of their future self, the majority of students actually said they intended to pay more attention to their health and save more money for retirement, actually double the amount of money they wanted then to save for retirement. So what it tells you is that if you can empathize with your future self and have a really clear picture of who you're going to be in the future, that has an impact on your decisions and your choices today. So you start living healthier, you start, saving more money and so forth. And I think that's really interesting when we look at empathy, not just as something that relates to other people, but also to ourselves.
Professor, let me go back to your key concept of future ready state of mind. We are used to hear about mindsets, but we can tell here that it's a type of upgrading the mindset. How is that upgrade done from mindset to this concept in your book?
Yes. We all know the concept of a mindset, right? We hear it everywhere. It's, taught in schools and universities, and, in organizations, we hear as well, like we have to have a specific mindset, right? And I think that's super important, and it's very critical, because it's a great way to refer to an attitude that's determined by your history, and other formative factors that have shaped how you interpret and respond to literally every event in your life. So what I also think, mindset tends to be fairly fixed and hard to change, because again, it's based on your deeply ingrained beliefs. So let's put it this way. When someone asks, you, Juan, or Tatiana, to try to convince you to change your mindset, you probably know that you have to work pretty hard to break down this mental framework you have in order to replace it with another one, right? And sometimes it's really impossible to change our mindset. So what I try to do is move away from mindset as this long-term focus towards something I call a mind state. And in contrast to a mind state is dynamic, it's fluid, it's kind of a lens that really influences how we view situations. And it really influences the choices you make about how you act or react. So let me give you like a metaphor. So in the same way your pupils in your eye get bigger or smaller to adapt to the amount of light in your environment, your mind state really fluctuates based on the content and the context of the moment. So the mindset is really powerful because it gives you control how you perceive the events of your life. And you can really influence directly your mind state, meaning you can instantly like choose to see something in a different light, and therefore as a result have a different behavior and maybe cause a different outcome. And so I think mindsets are important, but I think mind states are, again, like more fluid, more dynamic, and more helpful way of thinking how we can actually respond to situations.
Okay, so having said that, let's talk about the key dimensions to a future ready state of mind. As long as I remember, you talk about optimism, but not any optimism, radical optimism, openness, but not any openness, unreserved openness, curiosity, experimentation, expansive empathy, and what you call dimension X. So, can you please explain these dimensions?
Yes, Juan. Absolutely. So I hope that everyone who just listened to these 6 dimensions recognize them immediately, right? Because it shouldn't be new. It shouldn't be something that you're unfamiliar with, because we all, show a certain amount of optimism all the time. Again, we are open to a certain degree. We are all born as curious individuals, and we experiment from time to time. And at the same time, we show a level of empathy for ourselves and for others. But what I want to do is I want to use these dimensions to really help you to see more opportunities. Again, like as you can change your mind state in the moment, you can move to a radical optimistic view of that situation. And just to give you an example, radical optimism goes way beyond what we usually call seeing the glass half full, right? That's where we say like, oh yeah, that's an optimist. He or she always sees the glass half full. Or that's a pessimist. They see the glass half empty. A radical optimistic person actually goes beyond that, where they see the opportunity to fill the glass even further. So it reframes problems as positives and really embraces a vision of an exceptional outcome. So a radically optimistic person would actually look for something better in a situation. And that's something you can train yourself in. That's something you can practice. And I think it's a very helpful concept in general, because being a radically optimistic person, for me, is the only way to look at every situation, right? Which doesn't mean like I'm wearing, these rose-tinted glasses and ignore kind of like the reality, because some situations are really hard and they're tough. And so we have to acknowledge that. But at the same time, you need to look for the opportunity in every situation and say like, okay, what's the better here in this situation? And, I can, if you like, give maybe 1 or 2 examples on how that really could play out, right? when I look at my desk, right, it's a cluttered desk, right? I have lots of, notes and like, things around the desk. So a regular optimistic person would say, great, at least I have a desk to work at, right? That's kind of like an optimistic view about a cluttered desk. A radically optimistic person would say, what's better is that I can work on multiple interesting projects simultaneously, reflecting my diverse interests and skills, right? That's even going beyond just acknowledging that, great, I have a desk to work at. That's seeing the better in this situation. Another example might be like, Juan, if you look out the window, right, or Tatiana, you might see a noisy, busy street outside your window, right? And a regular optimistic person says like, oh, great, at least I live in a lively area, right? Again, like we already optimistic, right? We're not like the pessimists who say like, oh, this is too much noise and I hate it. So you say like, oh, great, it's a lively area I live in, fantastic. But a radically optimistic person says, what's better is that I'm part of a vibrant, alive community that offers constant inspiration and connection. Right? You can see that this goes beyond just an optimistic view. It's radically optimistic. And that's what I think we can all learn and train ourselves in, to really look at every situation and trying to look for what's the better here.
Great. Tatiana.
I wanna ask you about a dimension X, because it sounds like, I don't know if you saw it, but when I was a child, it existed a show on TV. Its name was Powerpuff Girls, and when it began, there was like this introduction where a scientific had a chemical X, So when you say dimension X, I think about that. I know you don't know like how to call it more than dimension X, because it's something that you don't know. Is unique for every person, for each of us. But can you please explain how this dimension X works?
Yes, I think you already are pointing to the exactly right way of thinking about this, right? So again, as I shared these other dimensions about openness and optimism and empathy and so forth, I think there's a unique superpower that every human being has on this planet. That's the good news. But what's also true is that unique superpower also plays a very big role in shaping your future, right? Like for yourself, Tatiana, right? So for me, what I want to do is I want to help people to discover their dimension X so that they can actually use it more often in their daily lives. So mine, for example, is a bias towards action. That's my dimension X. That's a unique superpower I think I have, where I'm not always like considering all the consequences, but I just go for it, right? I try to, step forward and try it out, or like, not always asking for permission, but mostly asking for forgiveness afterwards. And so for me, that bias towards action is really helpful because I'm aware of it and I can use it strategically in conversations or in situations where I just feel like, okay, this is helping me to move forward. So the dimension X, and I liked your story, Tatiana, here, is something that, can be labeled differently, right? But it's something that is your unique superpower. And, we have, I have like about 14 people I feature in the book. I call them the Future Readies. And with each of them, I discussed and discovered their unique superpower, their dimension X, right? For some, it's like they have a superpower in connecting the dots or connecting people, right? And connecting ideas. So they're the connectors, right? Others have a unique superpower that's more related to compassion, right? So they really can understand and feel what other people are feeling and understanding this on a deeper level. So it's really important that we not just focus on these 5 dimensions, I think, that are important, but like the 6th dimension, which is your dimension X, finding it and using it to really create something unique.
Professor, another issue that I think is very important is regarding the nature of creativity and understanding creativity not just as a gift or a very special condition that some lucky people may have, but understanding creativity more as a skill that you can develop.
Absolutely, yes, and I'm 100% with you. I think it's something that we sometimes think it's only a gift for a few people in this world, right? But it's actually something that we all have and we can train like a muscle, right? So creativity is, as you said, like a skill everyone can develop. And for me, it starts with curiosity, asking questions, explore new experiences, and allow yourself really to think what we call outside the box, right? And so
About compulsive curiosity, that's the word that you use.
exactly. So that's an even more extreme kind of like way of looking at that. And what I mean by that is that we all know that famous quote probably from Steve Jobs, where he said, creativity is just connecting things, right? So he talks about connecting the dots, connecting ideas, and so forth. So for me, there's another side to that, which means collecting the dots, right? So collecting, input experiences through your senses and so forth. And for me, it's the more dots you collect, the more connections you can actually make, right? So if you're a person who is deeply curious, maybe compulsive curious, and goes out into the world and asks lots of questions and, is discovering a lot, you have more dots that you can then connect later, which is, I think, all the purpose of creativity and like a definition, as we just heard, of creativity. So really kind of like going out and, gathering those diverse experiences and knowledge and then finding, ways to link them together is very critical. So again, to summarize, like creativity is not just about connecting the dots. I think that's one side, but it's also about collecting the dots first.
Tatiana?
Do you have like some exercises or maybe some tools we can like, have to learn to develop these dimensions you talk about and the creativity also?
Yes. Again, there's I wouldn't call them tools, but there's lots of practices that you can do, right? For me, a very critical practice, and I have a couple of those I call change your minds in out there, and like, people can read about it and try it themselves. I think that's very helpful. But I call these practices because it's a way of, not just knowing about this, but also doing it, right? And continuously engage in it. And so one of the practices that I regularly do is a mindfulness meditation, right? Which allows me to just observe my own thinking and my own emotions, right? And I think that's very critical to gather a deeper understanding of how you think and how you feel. So I do that every morning for, a certain amount of time. And I think it's something which, everybody can practice, right? Just sitting down or even like a walking meditation is something very powerful to allow yourself to really see how your, mind is kind of like, sometimes going into a direction where you think about the future and you worry about the future, or you have anxiety about the future. Also, your mind going into the past where you think something through that happened to you or that you made happen. So I think meditation is a good practice that everybody can engage in. But there's some, other things that I think can be helpful in training your maybe curiosity, if we want to stay with that for a moment. Again, curiosity is something that drives us to explore and understand our world better, which I think is crucial in our times. And we're all born as curious individuals, right? Juan and Tatiana, we all we're crawling on the floor and trying to taste everything and see everything and look at it and smell everything and so forth. But I think over time we lost that curiosity with even asking questions or asking good questions. And now with the emerging technologies, right, we have all the answers that are given to us. So I think maybe the last domain for us humans is asking good questions and asking better questions. And one way of doing that is to choose questions that start with "I wonder." And questions like, I wonder how I can maintain a healthier lifestyle, right? That's a question probably a lot of people ask themselves. Or I wonder how we can make education better with AI, right? Great question to ask. Or I wonder how I can improve my relationship with my partner, right? That's also a wonderful question to ask. But here comes a trick. You can turn these questions upside down to unlock even more curiosity. So if you try to put them upside down, you're actually starting to ask questions. For example, what habits would lead to an unhealthy lifestyle, right? So you turn the question around a healthier lifestyle upside down. Or what could you do to make AI negatively impact education? Or what actions would damage your relationship with your partner, right? So you see, I just turned those 3 questions upside down, which allows me to even maybe find more questions and discover more that really is the essence of curiosity. So upside down questions is one of the exercises that everybody can practice for themselves moving forward to have even more curiosity.
Professor, let's talk about young people. Young people and their dreams, their purposes in life, those who want to become innovative leaders, change makers. What advice can you give them for young people?
Yes. And, for me, young people are like the biggest inspiration, right? I find, lots of inspiration in my children, but also in the young generation. So I'm a big fan of the next generation. I think, the activism they show and what they care about and the values they hold is incredible. So giving them advice is something I don't want to do, but I can share a little bit of how I think maybe, and that's helpful for some. So again, I have that deep belief that every individual has the power to shape the future. And what I mean by that, there is a pretty simple formula for myself. The choices you make equals your future, right? So make good choices, right? And make more choices, because the choices you make or even don't make determine where you go in your life and how you get there. So every choice you do make is part of a process of weaving and shaping your future, right? But also at the same time, the choices you don't make add up to a future determined by someone else. And so the more choices you make, the more possibilities are revealed to you. And the more possibilities you have to work with, the more equipped you are to invent precisely the future you want to experience. And that's something very powerful, because, don't wait so that others choose the future for you. Create it yourself, choice by choice. And so one of the principles I lived by in my life was around, don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness, right? So don't wait that someone tells you what to do or how to do it, whatever it is. Go do it, right? If you believe that this is the right thing to do and it's good, make that choice and see what happens. And I think owning your future and shaping that is, something everybody can do. And we all have the human qualities that I shared that help you to make better choices as well.
Thank you very much, Professor. Unfortunately, we are running out of time, and it's a shame because it's so interesting listening to you, and we are learning so much. Maybe you will have one last question for Professor Pferdt, Tatiana.
Yes. Our journal, La República, focuses on business leaders mainly. What message do you have for people and organizations, maybe in Colombia, that are seeking to innovate or to prepare for the future or create a positive impact in our country?
Yes, great. The maybe two pieces of maybe, or two ideas I want to share. Let's put it that way, right? So at the core of my book is this idea that preparing for the future isn't about predicting what's to come, but about developing the mind state to navigate and shape what lies ahead, right? And every leader can develop that mind state and grow it, right? We all can be a little bit more optimistic, maybe radically optimistic, more open, more curious, experiment more, and show more empathy, right? And so the book really empowers individuals and leaders specifically not to only anticipate, but actively participate in crafting their futures. So I think that's the first thing that I want to share. And the second one is we mostly like to, especially like if we're in a leadership role or if we're leading, we mostly like to try to change others, right? By telling them what to do or how to do it. I would challenge that and say, like, be the role model, and then, be what we used to say, like, and still love to say, like, be the change you want to see happening, right? So if you show up more optimistic, more open, more curious, you experiment more and you take more risks and you show courage, others will follow, right? So whatever you want to see happening in your organization, start with yourself first and then see how people are following.
Thank you very much, Professor Pferdt. So we will be waiting for the 18th for your book to be released. Where can we find this book? How can we get copies of your book, of what's next is now? How would it be distributed, and how can people get access to your book?
Yes, you can find it everywhere. So it's going to be released June 18th in all bookstores that you love to get your books from, physical bookstores, but also online, your preferred way of shopping for books. There's also going to be an audiobook and then an ebook available. So you can also, if you prefer to listen to these ideas and these concepts, there's going to be an audio version too. So you can find it everywhere you get your books and audiobooks from.
Great. Well, congratulations. If we can be of any support to arrive to a Spanish version, count on us. That would be great for many of our Colombian people to have your book in Spanish. And we hope to see you here down in Colombia very soon, Professor.
Thank you. Yes. Appreciate your work, and thanks for sharing these ideas with so many people. And yes, I hope to visit South America very soon.
Great. So we will be waiting for you here. Thank you very much. Muchas gracias, Tatiana.
Thank you.
Alexandra, thank
Gracias,
you very
Juan.
much for helping us. And well, we hope that this book will turn in a new great success for you,
Yeah.
Professor Pferdt, and many people learning from your book.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank
Bye.
you. See you in the future. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.